Arts Libris is quoting on its website the French writer and representative of the Nouveau Roman, Michel Butor, who said, "In the future, the few books in which we will be interested will be the ones considered artworks." But as beautiful and thought-provoking this quote might be, it leaves us with a most puzzling question. What circumstances make a book turn into an artwork? One might think that every book is an artwork, seeing that poetry is considered as the highest and most complex form of art, or in turn, following the logic of the German artist Joseph Beuys, who said on the occasion of his Documenta 5 contribution in 1972, his Bureau for Direct Democracy, "Everybody is an artist." Assuming this, one of the largest book fairs worldwide, the Frankfurter Buchmesse, would have presented only last year 401,932 new artworks. And with all my respect, that would be inflationary. So once again, what circumstances make a book turn into an artwork? The Mexican artist, writer, publisher, and collector Ulises Carrion, who established in Amsterdam, 1975, the gallery and bookshop Other Books and So, one of the first international centers dedicated to the exhibition and distribution of artist books, wrote that year the manifesto, The New Art of Making Books, including some fundamental arguments to find an answer to our question. I quote, "A book may be the accidental container of a text, the structure of which is irrelevant to the book. These are books of bookshops and libraries. A book can also exist as an autonomous and self-sufficient form, including perhaps a text that emphasizes that form, a text that is an organized part of that form. Here begins the new art of making books. In the old art, the writer judges himself as being not responsible for the real book. He writes the text. The rest is only done by the servants, the artisans, the workers, the others. In the new art, writing a text is only the first link in the chain going from the writer to the reader. In the new art, the writer assumes the responsibility for the whole process. In the old art, the writer writes texts. In the new art, the writer makes books. But what is more meaningful, the book or the text it contains?" And Carrion concludes, "The most beautiful and perfect book in the world is a book with only blank pages." For Ulises Carrion, the book is a three-dimensional given, a tactile object, a volume, so to speak, that contains a sequence of spaces. It is that very definition which distinguishes a book from an artist's book, be it a novel, a short story, an essay, a research, a compendium. The new art of making books is, so to speak, an open space for any kind of projections, thoughts, ideas, and statements. It is the most tangible tool for all kinds of visualizations. Once we arrive at this point, we arrive as well to the next question that will be the starting point for the two roundtables. What is an artist book? Let me quote here another iconic and undisputed artist, Marcel Duchamp, who put it straightforward: an artist's book is a book made by an artist. That what we call today an artist book emerged in the 60s with the conceptual art movement. The book became not so much an object by its elaborated making or finishing, but its meaning and reflection. And to prove that the definition of an artist's book is a bit more complex than Duchamp is suggesting, I'll give you an example of this in relation to this fair's theme, books and music, which I admit is not an evident relation. It is a booklet written by an American artist in 1969 that was interpreted by another one in 1972 in a short video, and based on that, published in 2012 as a score by an Estonian graphic designer. Sol LeWitt's Sentences of Conceptual Art, sung by John Baldassari and edited by Tom Tragel. I will state the first sentence, interpreting Baldassari, but please pay attention to the phrase and not to the singing. Conceptual artists are mystics rather than rationalists. They leap to conclusions that logic cannot reach. This said, who is now the true author of that what appeared finally as a book? And what is its status? This and other questions I will discuss today and tomorrow with 8 book lovers from London, Paris, and Barcelona. 3 artists, 2 editors, 1 graphic designer, 1 publisher, and a librarian. These 2 roundtables are a continuation of a previous debate I have organized last year with the author of L'esthétique du livre d'artiste, Anne Mouglin-Delcroix, the American artist Peter Downsborough, who published to date more than 100 artist books, the international awarded Dutch graphic designer Armand Mewis, and the restless and indispensable bookseller from Barcelona, Ana Paisa, who is not here, unfortunately, because she has to prepare a presentation for tomorrow. And I'm very grateful that Arts Libris gave me the opportunity to continue this debate and to invite once more some specialists in that field. I'm delighted presenting you now our distinguished guests of the first roundtable. It is in alphabetical order. Victoria Brown is an artist and publisher from London. Her practice draws on public special collections to appropriate material research, applying traditional and innovative print techniques in the development of site-responsive installations. As the founder and director of Collide Editions, presenting its program here at the fair as well, her printmaking practice extends to artist books, in addition to curating and representing European-based artists. She's a visiting lecturer in the UK and Norway and facilitates outreach projects in London. In 2011 and 2012, she received the Birgit Skjold Memorial Trust Award for Excellence. Please give her a warm welcome. Applause. To her left, Christophe David Thierry is a publisher and bookseller from Paris. He established in 2001 a gallery bookstore that has been committed to the creation and diffusion of books, prints, and ephemeras by contemporary artists. As publisher, he collaborated with artists such as Matthew Brannan, Conrad de Dobbelaere, or Jan Zerandour, and edited in 2011 the inventory of all art and project bulletins from 68 to 89. There were 156 of those. This year, he presented together with his partner Anne-Laure Jean-Poisier at Arco Madrid the small but exquisite book show Tentative d'épuisement, with works by Francis Alice, Gabriel Basilico, Stanley Brown, Daniel Buren, On Cavara, David Lamalas, Christian Markley, Matt Mullican, or Beat Streuli. Please give him a warm welcome applause too. On the outer right, from my view, Francesc Ruiz. He's an artist from Barcelona. He makes art in an expanded comic book format that exploits the radical potential of cheap printed matter in words and pictures to forge stories and to survey the construction of gay identity and the contemporary city. His works often results in what I call total installations, as in the Jaois presented at the Gasworks in London in 2011, a mashup of this hyper-emotionalized and hyper-sexualized Japanese comic genre for a female audience, with contemporary art icons as Bob and Roy, referring to Rauschenberg and Lichtenstein, for example. His latest work, Vasim, is at the very moment on view at the MACBA in one of their exhibitions. Please give him as well a warm welcome applause. And last but not least, Helena Tatay, who is an independent curator and editor from Barcelona. Among others, she realized exhibitions on Ferran Garcia Sevilla at the Palacio de Sástago in Zaragoza, Hiroshi Sugimoto at the Geisha Foundation in Madrid and the Centro Cultural de Belém in Lisboa, Eulalia Valderosa at the Gallery Joan Prats in Barcelona, Fernando Briz at the Tapies Foundation in Barcelona, or most recently, the group show Cartografias at La Geisha Foundation in Barcelona. But most importantly, at least to me, she curated a traveling show on the German Hans-Peter Feldmann, himself a milestone in artist books publishing, at the Tapies Foundation in Barcelona, the Centre National de la Photographie in Paris, the Fotomuseum in Winterthur, and the Ludwig Museum in Cologne. On these artists, she published 3 catalog hybrids, or that is how I see it myself. 252 pages in 2002, that is a book that apparently you will present right now. Another book in 2010, and a catalogue in 2012. I have asked each one of our guests to bring his favorite artist book with him to kick off, hopefully, an enriching conversation in the search of the miraculous artist books and its making. Ladies first, Helena, may I ask you to present your PowerPoint? Helena presented a PowerPoint. We installed as well a kind of camera device that if someone brings a book as a physical object, that you can view as a public that book as well on the screen.
Okay, buenas tardes. It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank Santa Monica, and I want to thank Moritz Kung for inviting me. And the thing is that when Moritz invited me, I told him that I loved artist books, but I was no specialist, so that I supposed that he had invited me because of the catalogs I had done. And he said this could be an interesting topic to discuss. What is the difference between a catalog and an artist book? Because he thought that the books I had done with Feldman were very artistic. And it's true, because Feldman was deeply involved in the design and the production of the book, and also because it was done with the intention of doing something different. Catalogs follow a certain methodology, I think, that is that they show the artist's work, and then there are some texts that give an insight into the artist's work. Artist books, what we expect from them is that they do things in a different way, that they really change the way we think about things, that they wake us up from the symbolic way of our thoughts, and that they raise certain questions. Catalogs usually do the opposite. They answer questions, usually about the artist's works. I have bought 2 books instead of 1. I have bought 272 pages that I'm going to talk about and that I was involved, which I think is an in-between between a catalog and an artist book. And I have also bought a book I really like, which is a real artist book, that is Isidoro Valcárcel Medina, 2,000 Years After Christ. I don't think I will have time to talk about it, but anyhow, I bought it. Okay, when we started working on the books, and we started talking about the possibility of doing the book, there were many books done by Hans-Peter Feldman, which was a way, he did his art. For him, it was a way of showing his series of photographs. But there was no book on him or about the artist. There was a book that had been done in Porticos 10 years before. And I think Guy Scranin, who's not here, but we'll talk tomorrow, had done a small publication that had all the books, or listed all the books. That was more or less at the same time. And actually, when I started being interested in his work, which was 97, I could hardly find any information. And so I ended up going to visit him, which was a good idea, because he finally accepted to do an exhibition in Barcelona. At the time, he didn't want to exhibit. He had been out of the art system for 10 years. But he said yes to a small exhibition of books in Barcelona that started growing. But anyway, this is another story. So when the exhibition was agreed, of course, the Tapies Foundation wanted to do a catalog. The Tapies had always done very good published catalogs on the artists they showed, and I, of course, wanted to do the catalog. So when I told Feldman about this, he said, no, why? Why should we do another book? The world is full of art, the world is full of books about artists. It has no sense to do another boring book about an artist. Absolutely no, he didn't want to hear about. So, of course, I tried to convince him, giving him, we can do it in a different way, we can try and find something that you can do, but it would be also a catalog, trying to get... your work is always in black and white, because at the time they were black and white series. Let's do a book in color. And this was really the first idea he liked. And he went right through with it. He went to the end, because every page of the book has a different color. Well, when he said yes and started thinking about it, there was one thing that was very clear to him, is that he didn't want to have a book about his work only. He wanted to include in the book all kinds of things. He wanted to include work by others. Oops, I've gone the other way. And actually, the book starts with this page, which is a quote from Chuck Berry that, of course, suits very well Feldman. Chuck Berry says that you can't get directly what an artist does, because there is a series of processes. It's a little bit like the children that play the telephone game when they say a sentence and then go to another and to another and to another, and the sentence that comes back to you is a different one. The other thing he was very clear is that he would not give his biography. He didn't want to have a CV in the book, because he said that this list of exhibitions that artists do it pretends to give information, but it's really a way of measuring the success of the artist in the art scene. And that if you wanted to know something about an artist, you could see what he reads, or the movies he likes, or the collections he has. So we included also many pages that were a hint of his collections, because he had very, very large collections of images that he had collected since he was young. This is another thing that was included in the book. It's a fake interview with Brigitte Bardot. It's something that he found, not that he made, and he included in the book. And it's very funny because Brigitte Bardot talks about politics and about social facts, and from a very strict Marxist point of view. We also included, of course, his work, like this series of the woman's hair from behind, or his books like Voyeur, which is a collection of all types of photographs. Also the Time series, which is a photograph, 36 photographs done in one place during a moment where nothing happens. They're just normal life. The thing is that now his work has been very well known, but at the time it took me 2 years to go back and forth from his house to get all the information and to have a final list of everything he had worked. He didn't have a studio, so you went to his house and he would have a library. The work was at the time, it's changed now and it's become very big, but it was very modest. So he would take out the box and start showing you something, which was a fantastic experience at the time. And here. This is also another kind of things he just likes. This kind of things that he just likes, they were intended in a way of things that could be art or maybe not. They always have this sort of, because this is, at the time it was a photo he liked, but it became, afterwards he did a series of these open fridges. This is some more of the collections. This is, I think, one of his best books, which is the book about Essen. It's just a series of black and white photos of Essen. It gives the view of life in Essen in the 70s, but the book gives exactly the opposite idea of Essen that the tourist office would give. This is something included also that were collaborations by other artists. The artists that were invited were always his friends. In this case, this is the Fischli Weiss. Fellman asked them to send him 2 double pages of photographs that were not good enough to be included in his work, but were not bad enough to be thrown away. So they have this quality, they're not good, not bad. And actually, Fischli Weiss called this type of photographies the Fellman series. Also, everybody then involved in the project was invited to do a very short text that had nothing to do with Fellman, and to send a picture of themselves as a child. This is the page of Thomas Wesky, who was at the time working in the Ludwig Museum. And this is the page of Guy Scrannen, who will be speaking tomorrow, which is a very nice text. And I can't remember the reason there's no photograph of him as a child. There's only a photograph of a hyena, which is mentioned in the text. Can't remember. And this is one of those pages where there were all kinds of things into them, which is actually, Fellman called them the intermezzo, which is actually quite interesting. There's a photo at the bottom that you can see, which is Egon Schiele when he was dead. The thing about the photo is that Egon Schiele asked a friend of his to take the photograph when he died, which is surprising because, of course, he couldn't see it afterwards. No? There's also the sink of Walker Evans, or a photo of Nadar, and there's a photo of Clara Plasencia, who's here, who was the chief editor of the Tapies at the time, and who worked very hard on the book. controlling absolutely everything. But the thing is, we managed to sneak this photograph into the book. So she never saw it in the proofs, only when the book was done. And there's a very short text beneath where Feldman thanks him for all her pains. This is also something he likes. And, well, as you can see, the design of the book, I don't have said this, the design of the book is done completely by the artist. He would glue the photographs on 2A sheets to make the double page and select the color and give it to the designer who had to translate, to Salvador Saura, who had to translate this. So, and he chose the material. It's, I mean, the layout of the book was done. Feldman thought he had found a mathematical series to organize everything we had. So we grouped the things thematically. There were his series or the books, or the collaborations and so on, and started applying this mathematical series, which completely failed after a while because we had many of this and a little bit less of that. So we ended up just ordering as we liked, random. And this is actually the way we have done the 3 books afterwards. So I think it's an artist's book in this sense, that he has selected the material, that it's an heterogeneous set of things, that he did the design. But on the other hand, I wrote a very long text following all the work he had done to the time, and also all the work that he had done till that date is included in the book. So in that sense, I think it is a catalogue. So I would say it is a catalogue, but it's done in a different way. And that's how the book ends, thanking the viewer for their attention, and I thank you for your patience.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. You come here?
No, I see.
Ah.
I'm going to ask now some questions.
Oh, very good.
We do it quite casually, so I think it's, thank you very much for the presentation, because it is indeed, for me, as I said, a hybrid of a book. And it's nice to hear that you start, with that idea of a mathematical approach, and then at the end you just do what you like to do. My question is, since you gave that definition, and I think it's a beautiful definition, that an artist's book is raising questions and a catalogue is answering questions. Did you answer questions?
Well, I tried.
In that very book?
I tried in 2 ways. I tried doing with the text. That is a text that, it's a very long text that actually when Feldman saw it, he was horrified. That tries to go through all his work because there was no information.
Yeah.
And I tried to put into the book all the work that he had done, which was very difficult to see at the time.
Yeah.
So that is...
Do you think that is because the artist is afraid being confronted with his own history that he went through?
It could be also, but he always said he didn't like text. Art is something that happens and there's nothing to say about it. And when he did Ohio, this magazine with other artists, the advertising of the magazine said, guarantee, no text. I mean, it was something, and the Builders has no text. It was something that he was, like the biography, very strict from the beginning.
Yeah. You said that, did I understand it correctly, that the initial idea was actually that you made an exhibition on his books?
That's how it started at the Tapies.
At the Tapies. So at the Tapies it was an exhibition only with books, and then it accumulated to something else by traveling.
I talked with Nuria, and she said we can do a small exhibition here with books. And then Feldman came and saw it was only very young girls working at the tapies. And he said, yes, I want to do the exhibition. He was
well, they have a fantastic library. I mean, I only can recommend to go to the Tapies library because it's not only a beautiful collection, it is also a beautiful environment to be in that very library.
No, but then the exhibition started growing in size because as he didn't show at the time, he didn't want to do exhibitions. There were other museums that knew that the Tapies was doing the exhibition and started asking for it. So that's how he got to travel
on other places.
On other venues.
Something that occurred to me, because I have that catalog too at home, but I was wondering, because it has 334 pages, but it's called 272 pages. How come?
It's like the mathematical order, I think. It's something that I don't know. There are less pages.
There are more pages in the catalog.
There are more pages.
Than,
probably
let's say, advertised on the cover.
It's probably the translations and so on.
Yeah. But that was what was the initial idea to
stick to this?
To stick to the page number?
I don't think so. I don't know how we mixed. I think there were more translations or something happened in the way while doing
and
the
you
book.
did not adapt it in that sense. So you had the idea. We call it 272 pages. Yeah. And how come? How was that?
Well, this is something
it's very down to earth.
But he always does.
It's unusual for something that is a catalogue.
But that's how he titles his things usually. There's a very simple thing that pretends to give only information. All his books are called like this.
Okay. Last thing, after this book, you made 2 other books.
We made 2 other books.
They look alike in the aesthetical approach. Let's say it's a mess too. Can you tell us something about these 2 other books?
Well, they have
I
no
mean,
text.
not so much of...
They don't have any text. This is, there's just a very little one sheet by everybody that take part in the catalog or in the exhibition, writing something with a photograph as a child again, because the child is like the essence of the people. And they are different works, more or less. Of course, you can't. The new works he did since then, because another catalog is 10 years after. It was also published for an exhibition, anyhow, an exhibition that went. And catalog is slightly different because it has hardly any color. It's a book that is very restrained in this sense. And I think it's a little bit different the way and the works that are presented in it.
And do you see it as a kind of a trilogy, or for you? I mean, you made with that artist, which is a particular artist, I guess, to work with, 3 important books. Yourself, you see it as a kind of a trilogy just a strong personal interest, let's say, to work with that artist and to collaborate with him in order to, creating books?
Well, as I tell you, the first one was done, and then 10 years later we did the other. So I don't see it as something that continues. It was just working again with him after a very long time. He had already produced a completely different type of works. For me, it was a different experience, although the book is alike. And he has done, with the same aesthetical approach, other books.
Exactly, like the ABC, which is the most recent one, which is a kind of a book of a collection of paintings, and they are ordered. Here comes the mathematical thing back, in alphabetical order, that he arranged them on. It's like a dictionary, actually. When there is an apple in a certain kind of painting,
it's a
I say
children's
something, Marguerite, and you see an apple, then it is for A apple, and then you get the Magritte painting, and so on. It's a fantastic book.
It's a fantastic
yeah.
book. No, but I mean, he has done catalogs for his shows.
Yeah.
Books that are catalogs, or they're meant to go with an exhibition, and then there are his artist book, like this ABC that you mentioned, that I think are a different thing.
Yes. Explain us.
He just makes them because he wants to make them. They don't go with an exhibition, and they don't show a wide range of his works. They
Yeah.
work in their own.
Yeah, but you know, it's something which is very puzzling for me. This distinction, you know, how is there a distinction between a so-called catalog and an artist book? Can I show you something that is a bit improvising? Huh? I took myself some stuff. So this is I bought that recently, and maybe you recognize what it is. Nice thing is that on the back cover, someone smoked a pipe. Is the, let's say, the author. Now, this is made by Willem Sandberg, the director of the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, in '63. I bought it about 2 weeks ago in Amsterdam for €2, and it is really beautiful. You will see. And this, I think, here you know, it puzzles me. Of course, it is a designer, because Willem Sandberg was a graphic designer who became director. It was €5. It was not 2. I was exaggerating. Well, I just flip through. You have here this pakpapier, I don't know, this wrapping paper with an introduction. And then you have the spreads with the paintings presented in that exhibition. The interesting is of that exhibition that they had a lot of Pope paintings. I mean, of the Pope Innocent, and then wow, you see. So it's in the middle that spread you can open, and then some other examples, and it finishes with, you know, the list of exhibited paintings and the how do you say, the lenders of the works. And last page, the name of the artist. I think this is a, you know, a kind of a hybrid. This is not done by Francis Bacon, but by a graphic designer, and it is for such a tiny publication that is maybe 24 pages. I think it's a beautiful object, which captures in a way that spirit as well of Bacon, and you know, in the black and white approach, for example, this kind of there is a certain kind of horror in it too, in that publication. And well, for me, it could be an artist book, but it's a catalogue. So far on that notion. Thank you very much, Technique. Now you can switch again over to the PowerPoint, because we ask Victoria Brown to present her favorite book.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me today, to give me the opportunity to present something that's rather exclusive. I've been given permission from the artist to talk about this book. This is a book that I'm currently working on. It's the first, whether I'd call it a collaboration or it is Liane Lang's book. It's the first publication of Collide Editions, and it's being supported by the Arts Council England, and it will be launched in July. So, when Moritz asked me to bring my favourite artist book, as an artist, my first introduction to artist books was going back a long way as a student, rifling through the library, coming across Dieter Roth's one book, but it was volume 2. And I could never find volume 1. And I spent years trying to find volume 1 in the library, but I never found it. But it led me on a journey, yes. It led me on a journey that is why I'm here today. And if I did have a choice of bringing my favourite books, then of course, yes, perhaps Anselm Kiefer, perhaps an Anthony Caro. Unfortunately, I have financial limitations as an artist to bringing those favourite artist books. So I thought I'd take a different tact and introduce you to something that is actually the favourite part of what I do, which is the making. And making the artist book is really why I'm here. So what you see in front of you is a series of documentation photographs from Liane Lang's studio. Liane Lang is a German artist currently residing in London. She studied at Goldsmiths. She recently graduated from an MA at Royal Academy. She's currently exhibiting at the Musée des Beaux-Arts in Calais, and she will be exhibiting again in Berlin. Both exhibitions will complement, will bounce off as a continual dialogue from what we're currently calling Amnesiac Patina. So that's the current working title of the book. Her background as a sculpture artist, I would say she's a sculpture artist through photography, and that means that she's actually worked through many different forms within the visual arts, and that's what drew me to inviting her to put forward a submission for an artist book. So I invited 3 artists, of which Liane's looked most exciting, and also allowed myself to perhaps push myself into an arena that I haven't delved into before, which is sort of a sculptural angle of artist books, which is something, of course, I've always really been drawn to, because as a printmaker, artist books has enabled me to look at print works on paper in much more of a sculptural form, in an interactive and perhaps a performative manner. And I think from knowing Liane's work as somebody that's been based in London, so that did give me the advantage of perhaps knowing a little bit more of the history to her work. And I knew also that the quality of her work is absolutely stunning. She's a very articulate, ambitious young woman who I'm really excited to be working with. But this is the first time I've experienced this. This is the first time I'm working with another artist, in the sense of, am I going to be able to produce something that delivers on her level, the standard that she demands? Are we going to work together? What's the dynamic going to be like? What's her expectations of working with an artist book? She has never published an artist book before. She has published a catalogue, so that was interesting, because actually some of the subject matter that we're dealing with has been shown in a catalogue because it's an ongoing publication. But I thought, as an opening, perhaps you weren't expecting something like this. There's the mould on the chair, and hopefully these will work. And this was began in March, and the project that she would like to, that we're currently working on, so this is something I'm going to be showing you as a maquette, as it were, so it's not a finished piece. Her first draw was to work with her materials that she feels comfortable with, which is making moulds and casts, working with iron resin, bronze resin. The hands that you see in front of you, now they relate to the fact that she often uses her own body for sort of doll-like mannequins within the work, which you'll see purveyed out. So that's actually the only bit of physical presence you're going to see of Liane. So what you can see there is you can see now how the mould has got a bronze resin to it in the hands, and the sculpture at the back that she's currently touching with her hands. This is the maquette for what we're looking at as the cover of the book. And this has actually been cast in iron rosin and painted with a bronze rosin, which is something I'm still learning about. The term patina is used, is a very common for usage in sculpture, because we use it to oxidize the surface of sculptures. So if you look at a Henry Moore, he used this within his sculptures in many different colours and forms, and so the patina is something that we're looking at in the surface and the materiality of the work. So that's very important to the book that we're currently working on. And I thought it would give you an interesting context, sort of behind the scenes. You can see where this stuff is being made. So you can see as a sculpture studio, all the other projects that she's working on at the same time. And then this just sort of leads us into, well, how is she then working with the form of the book? And as a photographer, her photos come directly from, this is a project from the sculpture park in Budapest. What's unusual about this sculpture park is that they are relics, or perhaps renegades, of another era. These are sculptures that the majority of them would have been melted down post-Soviet war, and the ones that have been salvaged have all come together and been relocated to this sculpture park in Budapest. I think it's a fantastic body of material that she's delved into. And the idea is that she's looking at recontextualizing the relocation, the reproduction, and what was the other one? And the repose of her sculptures alongside these sculptures. So predominantly I'd call it the iconoclasm. That's her main interest in the work. And as you can see here, this is the last meeting we had. She decided in how she wanted to work with all the photographs she's been working with in the last year, that she's created these little thumbnails, because it's really about, perhaps the difference with the catalogue is that when you're the classic double page spread that you often get in a book, what we're looking at is the dialogue between those photographs. We're not isolating them, we're not numbering them, we're looking at them as how perhaps they could talk to one another. And so there will be perhaps, there may be a photo of one of the sculptures in the park juxtaposed against one of her own sculptures that she has actually made as a miniature. And by miniaturizing them, she almost humiliates the original, perhaps the original idea of these huge sculptures, which were to present a political movement of something that perhaps is behind a wall. And this sculpture park very much has a sense of a cemetery. It no longer has the same resonance. And often these sculptures might have been salvaged or saved purely for their size, so they're too large to move or remove, which is also very interesting. So the story to that is sort of pervades the book that we're currently working on. And now you can see the thumbnail against Leanne's small sculpture and the workings of the photographs from the sculpture park. And that's one of the double page spreads that we're definitely going for. And when I say double page, it's actually going to be more like a triptych. So you'll probably be viewing them in a form of a diptych of how the dialogue between the two, but how they're composed and arranged, that's still what we've been discussing. And so I have actually she has given me permission, which is really fantastic, because I think it's unusual for an artist to allow the public to view their work in the midst of it. So this is not complete, and this is giving you an idea of what I'm learning and how Leanne is learning about working with the form of the book through photography and sculpture. So I thought if we can ask the Ola Techno to...
our device?
Yes.
Yes.
Could we do that? I'm learning a lot about how cunning artists can be, because we have very in-depth discussions of the potential and the possibilities, but we somehow always manage to get back to exactly what Leanne wanted in the first place. So if I'd done this in a logical, perhaps a publishing manner, I perhaps would have started from the inside and worked out. But Leanne, in her enthusiasm, has started from the outside, which is a very substantial cast, which I now have to learn how to cast myself, because this is going to be an edition of 50. And everything has to fit into that cast. Now, my role, actually, is I have to step aside as the artist, and I have to look at it from a budget, from that perspective, and also a time scale. So we're currently on track for the time scale, but I'm yet to actually sit down and work out the budget, and that's my big fear at the moment, because it's turning into a really substantial, fantastic book. But from the funding that I've been awarded from the Arts Council, there certainly is an expectation of where this is going to be seen, the affordability to it, and the intention of this book. From my experience now of working with artist books in the last 5 years, the intention of the book, of the artist, is not always the same. There's many reasons why artists work with books. One might be to disseminate their work, so they want to create a large edition that's very affordable. Another might be for an exclusivity in the limitation of the edition. They might even be unique. Others might be to something that comes out of an exhibition or runs alongside an exhibition. It might be a postal piece, something with like Ulysses Carry On, who's known very, to use that as a postal demonstration. So.
Or a work.
Or, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's important.
So, we actually, just to show you very quickly, I can show you, so we did try out different forms. So I'm sort of using the language of a book artist in the sense of I'm using the materiality of book arts. She's using the materiality of sculpture, and somewhere in between, our language every now and then gets confused. Because I'm talking about the depth of the millboard, and she's talking about the iron resin. I'm still yet to see exactly what this iron resin is, but you can see sort of we were trying out different forms, and the materiality I think is very important, and she really wants to work with that. And this sort of what I'd say, the motif comes directly from one of the shallow reliefs in the sculpture park. And then you're welcome to come up and see this later on. Also, I have a badge, I'm downstairs, so you can find me in the next 3 or 4 days. I'll be sitting there for quite some time. And we have, let's put this aside. So you can see these are I'm doing this way, aren't I? Sorry. So, you may notice that there are what appears to be figures in these images running alongside to the sculptures. Now, these are the mannequins that Leanne works with. I like to look at it as a bit of a Anthony Gormley from a very different perspective, in the sense of something that's a much quieter, perhaps more sensitive to the use of your own figure. She certainly uses her own figure to make the mannequins and the dolls. And they're placed alongside these very strong, confident, active figures. So they might appear as they're sleeping or docile or in comfort. They're certainly not fearful of them. And in that way, and you've even got, so she's actually working on, this is one that she's working on at the moment. You can see that. So you can see she's actually just sketching straight on top of the photographs to work out various different formats. I think this one is particularly strong, that one there. You see that? So I did actually think she was hanging from the statue until she pointed out, no, she only works with the mannequins. So even I was fooled, I think, at the time. So yeah, that's.
But that's a collage, or.
Well, the collage is these are interventions into the sculpture park. And, and she's it's recontextualizing the historical narrative. Yeah. And in doing so, I think that I wouldn't say there's a linear way of explaining exactly what this is about, because we haven't achieved it yet. But what it's allowing us to do, what the book is allowing us to do, is to continue the discussion. And it allows her to see her photographs as a collection, or perhaps in pairs, rather than as individual pieces. For example, she's got a show at the moment in London, and you would usually see her photographs of hyper glossy, large scale. So this is very different in scale than she's ever worked to before, and it's also allowing her to replace the sculptures, her own sculptures, alongside to the sculptures in the park
So
too.
that book of the Lian, is the
Lian Lang.
Lian Lang.
Lian Lang, yes.
Lian Lang. That is, you mentioned it, or I understood it wrong. Is your first book as a publisher?
As a
You do.
Collide Editions, yes.
Yeah.
And I think publisher I'd still use as a very loose term. When I applied for this, I applied as if it was a sculpture, actually. So the description, the language that I used was much more about developing a maquette.
Yeah.
And from the outcome of the maquette, then Collide's role is to edition that.
Yeah. Because yesterday, when we had a small chat,
Yes.
you mentioned that you were particularly interested in the sculptural aspect of the
Yes.
book.
Yes.
And I mean, I can sense it now much better by having that insight in the process you have
Yes.
you presented just here. But what is that sculptural aspect? I mean, is it the box that the book goes in, or I understood it like that? Maybe it's not like that, or is it the book, or is it the way you read the book, based on?
I certainly think there's a
traditional
there's a
spreads?
certain sense of discovery
Mhm.
that you achieve through the book. There is a time-based media element to that. So, you know, there is the book cover, as it were, and you're going to be investigating into that. However, how you turn the pages or pull out things, or so there's certainly a discovery for that. But the sculpture is also about the tactile quality
Mhm.
of the work. So I'm certainly drawn to the materiality, and the books, for example, I showed you yesterday. I mean, I've worked with dipping books in linseed oil, the touch of the engraving on the paper, working with lots of different materials, and the scale as well. And the scale, when you're working with an artist's book, generally is much more intimate. But then, since running a project space, I really learned actually how people act on a book. And the action of reading a book has become very interesting for me too, because, for example, we have a book by Tamarin Norwood called Ololo, and it purely is an action book. You
An
have
action
to,
book.
You have to physically engage in the book to read it. There's no text.
You have it in your booth?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
Yes, and that was made by Bookworks, and it was published by Oxford Contemporary Art Gallery. Recently at the Kandinsky Library at the Pompidou, and they're also very engaged now in the action of the book, the act of reading, which is less literally of the text and more of how you engage in that. And the reading of an artist's book can be very personal and intimate, and it's something you put away and you put out. You don't have it out all the time. But it's also something that you share, and I've also learned that too. It's something that starts a conversation, it starts a dialogue. So it's something you can share with another person, or it's the dialogue you're actually having with the artist at the time. I think if you have when the artist produces a catalogue, it's very linear, in the sense of it's usually a chronological order, or there's a very logical way of going from beginning to end. With an artist's book, I think the best artist books are the ones that you have no idea how they're going to end.
Yeah. Mentioning that, do you think, is there a difference, and maybe that's my last question, then we go over to Christophe.
Yes.
Do you think, is there a difference between reading a book and reading an artist's book?
Difference between reading a book and reading an artist book. I'm not interested in those questions.
Because you were pointing out how special it is, to read an artist book.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, well, is there a difference, when you read?
All I can do is make. That is what I do. I had quite a funny conversation recently with a book collector, because I'm now in a position to advise. I think I don't have extensive experience. I have limited experience, but I have been able to get that first-hand experience of going to fairs, working with public collections, meeting private collectors, and to give advice to collectors about perhaps what to look out for, what's coming up, or they really should have another look at this. Say, don't just flick through it. This is something substantial, and you're going to kick yourself if you don't, look at it now, because it won't be around in 2 years' time. And of course, then the collector said, "Well, why don't you have one of these? Why don't you have this edition? And I said, I'm not a collector. I'm a maker.
Mm-hmm.
And it suddenly sort of dawned on me, there was sort of actually, as much as I would maybe think in the long term, I should be collecting, because I now know so much more about artist books. It just doesn't come naturally to me. What comes naturally is the investigative, is in the making. And if the books that I do decide to keep hold of is because I really, there's something there that I am motivated by that perhaps I will use within my own work. And therefore, when you're talking about the reading and the concept, I think that is your role. And my role is in what I make is for you to respond to.
Yeah. Well, I love to make book myself too, but then more as a from
so
the
that's why when I say I'm
part,
not interested, I don't think I'm qualified to give that as a substantial answer.
No, I mean, there are questions you don't have an answer, and when you bounce it back to question if you are a collector or not, I mean, then the next question is from what point on one is a collector, which brings me to an example of a collector in Belgium who has a huge collection of contemporary art, and he and his wife, they have a fantastic work, and that is an icon, I think, in contemporary art. It's the Carte du Monde Poétique of Marcel Brothars. That is a world map, which has a title, a regular map with a title, Carte du Monde Politique, and it is corrected on top into poetique. So I said to the lady of this collection, I mean, if you have this particular artwork, you don't need all the other stuff. I mean, you have literally everything incorporated in one single artwork. I mean, you have the whole world in real and in imagination. So this said, I think it's relative when do you become a collector?
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Victoria, thank you very much. It was very nice to have followed your journey into the making process. And it is really unusual that I think someone presents something in a state
but I think
progress.
really to give credit to the artist to allow that. Because,
so bring back the greetings to London, and you say we had a great time, and it was very nice to have followed your presentation and favorite book, which I think is also nice that Helena and Victoria, they presented books, I mean, they made themselves as reacting on my question, bring your favorite artist books. So I think that's rather logical, that you bring something you are really involved yourself in. Brings me to Christophe. Hello, Christophe. So, Christophe, thank you very much for your coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for your invitations.
Like I mentioned in my introduction, last time we met in Madrid, in your beautiful small exhibition of books. I'm curious what you have brought us today.
I brought some of my publications,
yes,
and also one of my favorite books. So I can begin with my favorite books, perhaps,
exactly,
which is not published by me, but in relation with Elena's choice. It's this one. I think that's okay. No? Okay, in front of me. I brought this one, which is like probably one of my favorite books. I think that everyone have to buy these books and have it in his library. It's an ongoing project that Hans-Peter Fellman began in 1994, titled Voyeur, and it's a two edition of the same books. This is the second edition, and this is the sixth edition published this year. And I bought it because when you sent me some question, you asked me where I bought it, and I remember because the first time I bought it, it was probably this one, and I was not a bookseller and I was not a publisher when I bought it. It was in Germany at Walter König bookstore.
That was in the 90s?
This one, it was in 1997.
1997, yeah.
So, and I bought it, you know, because I found it on the counter, and it was really small, and I was fascinated about this book, which was full of picture, and the confrontation between tragic images, happy images, which was, for me, a perfect representation of our society. And And in a way, I choose these books for bring it in Barcelona too, because it's really easy, because I can slide in my pocket, and I really like that, the fact. And
so you take it on travel?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
This one, I have to be honest, not this one, because this is turning a collector items.
That's
and now it's a little bit more expensive. But this one, which is like, you know, that it's really inexpensive, and this, it's a component, it's a very important component of the project by Hans-Peter Feldman, to my opinion. And like a publisher, I'm really jealous about this project, because you know that it's the shape, the form, and the meaning of the book, and the price, everything, it's absolutely perfect. Mm-hmm. And because the price of this book, it's €9 and 95 cents.
The red one.
Yes, the red one. And so it's why it's probably one of my favorite books, and I keep it, you know, that's on my night table or in my living room. It's never on my on the bookshelf, never, because I'm always looking for, you know, that's because it's really, really important books for me.
So I mean, because I know a bit that book, but maybe the public not. Maybe you can go a bit through the books and talking about, you know, what is your fascination in it? Is it the associative way you read the images?
Because you know that's when, for example, when I look for watch at the television, for example, it's I can go from, you know, that's a tragedy from something happy, and so it's the same in these books. And so, you know, it's here, for example, I have
can
some
you see
people
it?
who are looking for other picture. Here, like, it's some sport images, porn, probably picture from porn mag, and so it's other. We don't know, and especially, which I really like too, it's art images and photojournalism, and there is no hierarchy between them, except for the size. You know that sometimes when it's a big one, you can find on the left page, and when it's more small, you decide to organize them like that, like some square. And so, and for me, and these books, like a publisher, it's really, really important, because when I'm working with some artists, I'm really obsessed about the question of when a book is finished, when a project is finished, I'm always thinking, is it the right way to work and to produce a book? It's really an obsession, like a publisher. And so for me, it's like a reference, you know, that's when I'm working on an artist. I'm not only talking about the fact that this is, because, you know, that's like a publisher. I publish some inexpensive, unlimited books, but also some limited and more expensive books. But this is not really important, but the really, really important thing is to be sure that we produce something right, and with the artist. And so it's probably why these books, it's so important for me.
Is a reference for you?
Yes, absolutely.
How different
Definitely.
are they? Because you said it's a first, a second, and now a fifth.
No, this
edition,
is probably no. I think that this is probably it's because I'm, unfortunately, I'm probably a collector too. And
you
so,
are,
you know,
certainly are. Yeah.
And so, you know, that of course I'm obsessed about the idea to have like all the version of the same book. So it's another dimension of my job, because you know that before to open the bookstore and the gallery, I was working in a lawyer office, and I was a collector of books. And so in this case, it's a little bit different, the fact that I brought two versions of the same books.
But this is difficult. This is dangerous with that type of book of Hans-Peter Feldmann. That you buy the yellow one, no, and then you discover there is another one, a bit slightly different maybe, and then of course you need that too, and so on and so on. It happened to me with Kippenberger, with the hotel, and no drawing, no cry, and. This was my initial kind of where I got fascinated by the terms of artist book, because I bought the No Drawing, No Cry by Kippenberger, 20 euros. Yeah. And that's a book which only has paper of stationery of hotels, letterheads with hotels, but nothing of it. There are blank papers, only with the logos. And well, it was just a special something. And I thought, oh, it's nice. And then I discovered, because that book was published in '97, in the year he died, that it was a kind of a reminiscence to two previous books he published, which is Hotel and Hotel. I think 92 and 94, something like that. I'm not sure. Well, then, I saw once the first one, the Hotel, which I bought. That was 60 euros. Okay, and there were the hotel drawings in it. And when this happened, of course, you want to have the other one too. Which I paid then a bit more, about 160 euros, which was, etc. And but meanwhile, they became really expensive, which I think is the bad thing in the whole kind of book.
Yes, but
collection, or we certainly can discuss that tomorrow with Elizabeth James. Who is a librarian, about this topic of that books became, they increased in
like
values incredibly. I mean, as an example, that the first book of Lawrence Wiener, Statements, it was sold for $1.95. You can find it, but you have to pay more than $1,100 for that book. I mean, it's almost 600 times more than it was initially the price.
Yes, but that to my opinion, as art, it's a daily experience. I think that's and I told you that I'm a collector, unfortunately, and because I think that we don't have to collect, because that this, for me, it's really, really important. This doesn't matter. Now it's really more difficult to find, more expensive, but doesn't matter. You have to forget this one. You just have to buy this one today and to live with, which is really, really important. I think that we have to, and it's probably the problem, that in artist book world, because of course some of these books are really, really expensive and turn in a kind of icon. But I think that we have to forget this idea of collections. Yeah. And because when I open the space, that's when I'm in 201, and first I share my space with a gallery, and my idea was because it was GB agency, and we share the space, and the idea when Nathalie Boutin, who created this gallery, when she came and she told me that okay, I plan to open a galleries, and please join us for this project, and I asked her what could I do? Because that I'm working in a lawyer office, I don't have any relation, and I don't have any idea. And she told me that you are a book lover, you can open a bookstore. And so for me, it was a great opportunity, because like an amateur, and that I visited some galleries and exhibition, contemporary exhibition and museum. And for me, it was an opportunity for people to come in a space and buy an artwork and bring it at home and to live with, which was a big difference with the other kind of medium, like paintings, photographs. This is, for me, it's really, really important. And so, and you know, it's why I decided to publish some books too and to sell them.
Well, let's have a look.
Yes. So I didn't brought the first books I published, which was with Fabrice Hibert, because I organized a show of all of these publications. And when it came in the space of the bookstore, which was like a blank page, he asked me, it would be great eventually to, and this was really important for me and decide the way in which I'm working now. And it told me that it could be great eventually to show some of my drawings in relation with some of my books. And so we organized an exhibition of drawings, of artist publications, and he asked me if it would be possible also to produce an artist books. And for me, in the same time, and with Fabrice, I had this experience that's to offer to an artist the opportunity to exhibit his work in the physical space of the galleries, to exhibit his complete production of books, and in the same time to offer the physical space of the publications, which was absolutely different from the physical space of the gallery. And so this was the first publication I produced. And after, you know, that I produced some artist books, and which were not always in relation with a specific project in my space, and sometimes some exhibition catalogs. Perhaps I can begin by the exhibition catalogs, and or by artist books.
Sorry, because the technique told me that we have to be out at what time? 6:20.
6:20.
So that
wow.
I mean, with all your mind respect.
Yes.
I'm sorry that.
So no, you're welcome. We can
maybe
both.
Exactly. And then
so yes,
Francesc.
No.
And then there are a lot of questions, of course.
So it's two sample of books I produced on the occasion of two exhibitions I organized in the space in Paris. The first one is titled Books on Books, and I invited a Swiss collector, Christophe Schifferli, to create a show in Paris, which was about some books, and especially about the question of representation of books. How some artists used some picture of books in their own publications, like Richard Prince with American English, like Martin Kippenberger with Happy End of Franz Kafka, or Jonathan Monk with cover versions. And so for me, first we organized a show. It was a selection of 26 books. And really quickly, because we organized in September 2009, I asked to a graphic designer, who is also an artist, Jérôme Saint-Loup-Herbier, to take care of a catalog. And I told him that you have to consider yourself like a curator of another space, which is a publication. So feel you free to do what you want, like a curator of another space. I'm just the producer, the publisher of these books. And so he decided to I invite Christophe Schifferli, and Jérôme Saint-Loup-Herbier decided to invite two artists, Jonathan Monk and Yann Serrandour. Both are bookmakers and book collectors. And it was a conversation between these two artists and the graphic designer. And they discussed, and you know that as we don't have a lot of money in order to produce, so here we have some picture, one portrait of Jonathan Monk, and here we have the portrait of Yann Serrandour. And it's like the process, you know. And because they organized a stack of books, and the selection was a little bit different from the selection for the show in the space. And after, you don't have any cover, because this is the beginning of the conversation between the artist and Jérôme. And after, we slide from a book to another book, and they discuss about the selections. And so sometimes we never know if we are in the books
Put it a bit more
describe
into the image.
in the
yeah.
book, describe,
No.
or yes,
Yeah.
if we are in the book, or if we are in the conversation, because sometimes it's just some picture, that's of text. I'm looking for something. Here.
So it's
Yes,
a
here.
dialogue between two
Yeah,
book lovers.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And a graphic designer, which is
on your
also a book lover.
exactly, but on the occasion of the collection.
Yes,
The collection of
absolutely.
of
Absolutely.
that collector.
Yeah.
Of that suite.
And so this one, and for me, that in a way it was really interesting because that when I organize a show in Paris in my space, that almost anybody is able to come and to visit the gallery. And so for me, it's like, okay, an opportunity to bring the show out my space. And so this one, it's another publication I co-produced. This one was a co-production with Cabinet Galleries in London and Louisa Riley-Smith from Cambridge, which is in charge of the distribution of art and project bulletins. And so Louisa came and several times in Paris because I was one of his customers, because she's a book dealer. And she asked me if I would be interested in to organize a show dedicated to the bulletins in Paris. And I remember because the first time when she came, my space was really, really small. And I had seen a show dedicated to the bulletin in New York at one was at David Platzker space, Specific Object, and the other one was in a show organized by MoMA, Amsterdam In and Out, and they exhibit a complete set of the bulletin on the wall. And so when Louisa suggested to organize a show in Paris, I told her that, yes, it's a little bit difficult because, you have seen the show, which is really, really small. And so let me find a more big space and we will organize something. And 1 year after, I moved in another big space. And so I sent an email to Louisa. Finally, I have the space. And when she came and when we decide to organize a show, and more I decide, okay, it's absolutely stupid to show some bulletins on the wall. And at the end, it was just the 2 binders and with all the bulletins, and people were able to sit on a bench and to look carefully about the bulletins. And so it was like an absolutely empty space with just the 2 binders. And so, and this one was, that we decide it's an opportunity to publish a books dedicated to the bulletins because it was the first time that a publication was only dedicated to the bulletin. And like for Books on Books, it's an opportunity to keep the memory of a show organized in a space, in a private space. This is, for me, it's a function of a catalog. And quickly, because this is the part, and for example, at this moment, I'm working on another project dedicated to the Alan Capro posters, because I organized 2 years ago a show on the occasion of a publication of the catalogue raisonné of the books by Alan Capro, published by the Italian publisher Mousse. And so we exhibit a selection, in dialogue with the books, we exhibit a selection of posters. And I discover this part of his work, and I suggest to the estate to think about a publication. And this is for the first time, and for me it's really, really interesting. It's a very interesting project, because I didn't organize a show of the posters, but we think with the graphic designer about a publication which could be reactive, like an exhibition. So we work in a different way, that.
Which is interesting because he was never very much clear. He gave a very loose frame of how to deal with the happenings or the performance. So I think it's a very interesting context.
That for this publication, I do hope that we will be ready for September. And so with the graphic designer and with the estate, that we think about, okay, we are speaking about some posters and about Alan Capro. And so when I was speaking about the right form of a book, which is so important, we think about, okay, it's absolutely different. We can consider the public works about this publication like for art and bulletins, which was think in a more classical way. Alanka Pro, it's absolutely different because you have to, it's with some loose pages, you have to activate the publication, which was absolutely in relation with the works of Alanka Pro. And I think that it's really interesting when you work like a publisher and when you work with graphic designer to think about the subject of the publication, and also, of course, in the case of Alanka Pro, about his work itself.
Exactly. Yeah. But it is, I mean, there is an interesting case, and I'm cutting a bit of your time, Francesc. Because you brought these two Hans-Peter Feldmann books. There is from Rollo Press a book published, Voyeur, but from another person.
Emma, I don't remember her name. Swiss artist, yes.
From an artist who felt very strongly inspired by the typology of this book and made, I think, a kind of homage, to that series of Hans-Peter Feldmann on her own, imitating, let's say, the layout, the spread, the cover, etc. That book was published, but I heard that apparently the artist, Feldmann, objected against the distribution of this book, and so that book became taken off again from the market. Have you heard about that?
No.
No? Elena? No?
So I have to keep carefully the copies.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. No?
Yes.
Well, I thought you could have comment this, but with your lawyer background, would have been interesting. Seeing the time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Christoph.
No,
I'm also sorry,
no, because
Francesc.
that I was obsessed about, that the quote by Ulysses Carrion about the blank pages, but it's okay. This is the next step, to produce only blank pages.
The blank page. Well, there is a whole row of blank books.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There is almost an own section in the library, the blank book library. Okay. Christoph, thank you very much. Welcome. Please give a welcome applause and an applause to Christoph and a welcome applause to Francesc. So, Francesc, go ahead.
Okay.
And then there is no Q&A afterwards. And well, just to finish, and I guess we will be on the terrace having a drink, and please join us, and then we can continue our discussions for the one who would like. So please.
Thanks Maurice, for the invitation. I bring a book of an artist just to comment, but I will comment later. First, I want to introduce part of my artwork that is very related to this artist. So I think it's necessary, this introduction about my work, first of all. And as we don't have too many time, what I want to do just to show some slides, and just to, okay. I'm not very familiarized with this. Okay, so I usually do I work with comics as art books, with art books that look like comics, and usually I work with structures using a book or publication as structure to create architecture or to create book-related architecture. So usually I work with publications that create like newsstands, libraries, bookshops, and art book fairs also. So like this, no? So I will show some of the projects. This is a project I did in Philadelphia like 4 years ago. That is like a whole creation of a typical Philadelphia newsstand. That instead of using, I bring some publications, but I will show them very fast just in order to that you can see how they look. So this is basically just using like just once a single publication. a single publication, this is a publication, that contains like 120 different covers. So I like to think about the book and about the publication as something that creates, for me this is like a brick. If we think about architecture of books. So the brick is the book, and this case, this publication has all the, how we can say that, all the ADN, the DNA, no?
The DNA,
the
exactly,
DNA of the piece, in this case, what is a newsstand. So what we did was just to produce like 2,000 copies of this magazine that contains different magazines to create the skin. It's about the skin of this newsstand. So it's also something very interesting. Just to, this is a piece of art. It works as a sculpture, also as a distribution point, and it has. It was in this case something very difficult when you work with publications into in museums. You had the possibility to take one copy in this newsstand. So sometimes it's not. It depends if you have been producing many copies or not. In this case, it was allowed to take one copy. So something interesting in terms of talking about what's the role of publications inside the museum, and if you can touch them, if you can take them or not.
That is a panel discussion on itself.
Yeah. So, but I work on that.
Public in museums. Yeah.
So okay, this is to show you like somehow it looked. I've been doing like newsstands in different cities like Philadelphia, Cairo, and recently I've done one I also did one here in Santa Monica, in Barcelona. And this is like the course that they look like. Well, I will go very fast. This is a newsstand I did in Cairo, also using the same strategy, like creating. I went to the street one day and I bought like 60 different newspaper, and in order to create a publication with 60 different covers that reproduce like it's a kind of a tournament of the newspapers of one day in Cairo, and the same publication creates again the whole architecture of a street newsstand typical from Cairo. There are more things to say about these works, but I will concentrate on how they're produced, how in the relation with architecture for me, and this idea of publication as a brick, as a minimum structure in order to talk about information structure. For me, also, newsstands are kind of information structures, very related with the pre-internet. So it's kind of, they are kind of it's the closest thing that we had to internet before internet for me in terms of popular culture, how there are places where you used to go and buy different kind of specialized information, information about what was happening today within the newspapers, but also information about sport, about technology, about science fiction, about all kind of things, about sex, about, well, you can find all kind of things.
I think what is interesting in the work of Francesc is that it has this kind of expanded, the potential that the magazine or the comic you are doing, it stays a magazine or a book or an artist book, but at the same time it is a sculpture, or it can turn potentially into a sculpture. It is both. It is like you mentioned in that book stand. It can be huge, but at the same time it can be very practical. So and a lot of works have actually that particular character, I think.
Well, for me, that has a different levels of, you borrow one copy, and then you will have this approach to the publication. It's completely different than when you see the piece, the installation. Yeah. So it's like two times and there are different times of the installation or the publication here. Well, there's another work I do also. I work with the publications as something more like performatic. This is a publication I did also in Cairo. It's about taking some characters of the most popular characters of the comic history in Egypt, and put them together in order to create new adventures of them in contemporary Cairo. So I produced this like nine different issues of this comic book, and they were distributed in downtown Cairo. The particularity of this work is like each copy, there's a narrative that takes you from one place to another in downtown Cairo. So you follow the adventures of the characters in Cairo, and then they bring you from one place to another. And then you see like the city as they show the city in the images. Also, you discover some places very important for the history of comics in Egypt. This is like the map of Cairo. And this is very interesting because, well, for me, in terms of what the book I will talk about later, is I'm using these 4 very popular characters. One of them is Tintin, because they were very popular for Egyptian people, because there were also magazines under this, the name of these characters was Tintin, Donald, and there was Samir and Smash Citizen. These two last characters, they were very famous, but they were local productions of comics. This is another show I did, also using in Galeries, London, using also the structure of a bookshop. So what I did was is to create, just producing one single comic book. This is a copy, but with like 250 different covers, but the content is always the same. It's a comic book that explains you the story about a community of girls that have decided to install in South London, in Vauxhall, is a gay area, in order to develop a whole program of editions devoted to yaoi, that is very specific niche of manga culture that is showing like homoerotic love and sex, but it's written and drawing by woman for women. So very specific. It's kind of a fictitious community, but it's something I did. So it was working as an open bookshop, and people was buying there. So it's something like really was working in terms of bookshop.
It was a kind of a pop-up show in
yeah,
that sense.
It looks like there are several comics, but it's only one comic with different covers. Also, I was also for me it's kind of the tournament of the same building of the institution of Galeries, because I was taking all the people who was working there, and I just take them and I just convert them in authors of this small press kind of bookshop and publishers. And the content of all these books are something I'm very interested always. Is like everything is context related. So it talks about all the gay activity in Vauxhall area. So it's about all the clubs, all the parties that happens in the area. Okay. There's a little some images of the comic that show these girls like doing some research in the area just to in order to take some documentation to produce later their comics, their gay comics. You know, and they at the same time they learn how to draw hands and other things also. And this is also always very interested in distribution of publications, and I've been working as a work in Cairo. I'm very interested in kind of dysfunctional ways to distribute publications. In the case of Cairo, it was also interesting because it was a way to avoid censorship. So also it's very interesting how distribution works in order to avoid censorship, and so something I'm very interested. This is a very ambitious project that I did in 2012 and 2013. So it was to recover a porn magazine of a gay porn comic published originally in Italy, that also was distributed, edited, translated in France. The name was Sukia originally in Italy, but then in France was published by Every France. It was a very popular publisher in the 70s and 80s. That is the publisher who has more time has been like banned in the history of France, but also was very popular in Spain And it was published in Flemish, in Brussels, and also in Bogota, in Colombia. So what I did, I traveled to all of these cities in order to do a research about the reception of these comics in the 70s and 80s, and to see if they are what people was still interested in them. So the result was like 5 different. So they are the different places where it was published. So it was like the project was about the distribution of pornography in the 70s and 80s, and it's very interesting because it's a pornography produced not in not Anglo-Saxon countries. So it's something like a South pornography that I also was kind of interested in all Catholic countries in some aspects. Yeah. And this is like how it was looking. So also was kind of reproducing like the newsstands where I found originally like the magazines in every different city. So it was reproducing
of those 5.
Yeah. So it was like a stand in. Okay, I will go faster. Okay, Milan, Barcelona, and this is France, and this is Colombia. Okay, so this is an art fair. Art book fair I did. So, the name was Comics Meeting Artist Books. It's a very crazy project I did at Miro Foundation in Mallorca. So I was trying, because I'm very interested in artist books and comics, I tried to create this crazy mix between comics and art books, just to create this fiction about how it could be like a meeting of people who understand comics as artist books. So I create all these fake art comic book fair or book fair, and it was all these publications, all these newsstands were showing like fake publications. It was about basically it was a parody of an art book fair, a parody like of an event like this. And it was showing like books from different countries as in a kind of a Mediterranean narrative. You know, showing books by Turkish, Greece publishers, Italian publishers, French publishers, and the content was very crazy. This is the opening of the content. It was I just take like a character, Tiramola, like very crazy character of the 70s in Italy, and it's the one who is like the content of all these publications is this comic, and it's showing like strange things that happen at book fairs, like this. It talks about the precarity of the booksellers, about the publishers, about the strange things that happen in terms of audience, about organization, and about everything is mixed with Mediterranean feelings, strange feelings.
So
it's
about
kind of
reality.
Yeah. So okay. Well, I have some copy here if you want to take. And this is the work I have. It's also a fiction comic book about an imaginary fictitious comic book that never exists in Morocco, an institutional comic book. But now it's show on MACBA. This is the last work. It's a newsstand I did in Cox for the Prague Cox. So here is the first time. No, it's not the first time, but I'm not using comics. I'm using just images. This is also the tournament. So it's a fake also newsstand using just as always I do, the structure of the magazine with different covers, like 120 covers also, that creates this skin, but it's also interesting because it's also like all the cigarettes are there, so you can, with the magazine you create the whole sculpture of all the skin. So I just wanted to, we have time to show the work of Jochen Werner. I'm showing this work because
It is important. So
I'm very interested in this field that is between art books and comic books.
the camera is working.
Okay. show. Okay. So why I choose like Jochen Gerner? I could choose like all the artists. I was thinking about Alan Moore at the project Crack of the Dawn by Matt Mulligan and Lawrence Weiner. I was thinking about Jess, like the poet from the 50s who did like, the tournament of Dick Tracy. I was thinking about Dan Graham also, who was doing also comic books. And there are like, many people from the contemporary art field that are using comic books as a tool also. So for me, there's a whole space into the field of art books that comics can work very well. And I choose Jochen Gerner because I'm just creating a show by him in a small space in Barcelona. It's called Ed Hall. And for me, that's something very important in terms to understand the space that nowadays exists between comics and contemporary art. That there's a boundary there that some people like Jochen Gerner is erasing, is creating. So what he did, he took Tintin in America. It's a comic by Tintin. There's nothing special. Okay. Well, yeah, there's something very special about Tintin. Tintin is very, it's under very restrictive copyright laws. So you can do anything about Tintin because customer who is a publisher will take you to jail if they can. So it's something very difficult to work with Tintin. I've been working with Tintin in my work and with other characters that are very popular, but as I work in the field of art and of small editions, I never had this problem till now. Well, and what he did was to do like the tournament of Tintin in America in a very clever way. Jochen Gerner, what he did was he take like a black ink and start to mask all the book. Well, and in order, he covered all the text and all the images, and he just left like some spaces of color. So he is not at the tournament. Is in order to avoid copyright, what he does is not because even Ergué writing is under copyright. So he cannot talk about. He cannot use the text. He cannot use the font, the writing. So he used the color. Only the color to rewrite again the whole comic book. Well, this is not the original French edition. This is the Spanish one, but he's using like the old original French edition as a pointer star. So you can see here that the blue is this blue. Okay, this color here is from here. Okay, so it's something he can be. So, okay, this is not, but, okay, you can see this. He's explaining again the story, but using this kind of pictograms, in a very simple way, but masking in black all the pages, but just leaving this kind of small pictograms that tell the story in another way, very abstract way. Well, it's very difficult, but well, you can see that the colors, this color of the car here is this edition. So it's very, and for me, it's very interesting in terms of how he avoids, he rewrite the story, avoiding all these things that could be against copyright. Jochen Gerner is a very interesting artist, has been working in this space between art and comic, and he has been doing different artist books, and he has been like developing with other artists like a whole movement inspired by Ulipo, the literary like movement. It's called Ubapo, and what they do is like to make exercises and make works with constraints. No? For me, this is inspired by the constraint of for me, the tournament itself is a kind of a constraint, but they have been developing all the kinds of constraints, like I think it's iteration in English, using like just one single panel to reproducing this single panel to explain one story, or it's like upside down comics. It's a comic that you can read it from the top to bottom, and from bottom to the top without, and the meaning is the same. It has been like developing different structures and new ways to create comics. So it's a very, very interesting author and movement who has been like opening the comics field and approaching it to the art field, I think.
Francesc, oof. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.